What's up, guys, and welcome back to Beyond the Void Horror Podcast. My name is Alex, and today we're going to be talking about Creepshow Episode 2 on Shudder. Just came out today, and I want to talk about it. All right, guys, so we're going to be talking about episode 2, and I feel like with these kind of episodes, because of how short they are and condensed they are, I think it would be best if we do spoiler reviews of each of these segments in this episode from here on, because it's really hard to discuss an entire episode. Might be best if you come back after you watch it. If you're not subscribed to Shudder, I think it's worth it, $5 a month. You'll at least get 4 episodes, which is like 8 stories, so... Anyway, in this episode, we have 2 segments, just like the first and any moving forward. We have Bad Wolf Down and The Finger. The first segment is called Bad Wolf Down, and it is actually written and directed by Rob Schrab. I believe I'm saying his name correctly. He is actually a comedic writer, and he's actually written for The Workaholics. He did that Monster House movie, but he also is writing and directing for this particular segment about Nazis and werewolves. This segment stars Jeffrey Combs, of course. He's actually been in From Beyond, The Reanimator. We know most of the horror movies that he's done, and we love him for. He plays a Nazi German soldier, Lieutenant Commandant something or another. I couldn't figure it out. I tried looking it up online. But this isn't the first time that he's actually played a Nazi soldier of any sort, or some sort of Nazi ranking member. In fact, he was in a TV show called Perversions of Science that I think was on HBO, and the episode was called The Exile. In that episode, by weird reasons, he's sent back to Earth in the past and becomes Hitler. I don't even think most people remember that show, but I do. I thought Jeffrey Combs' performance in this one was actually really good, and I would love to see him taken a little bit more seriously in some bigger roles. He has, of course, but he's kind of like a comedic actor in some respects, and he goes a little over the top for some people. But in this one, he actually kind of plays it straight, and I actually liked it. Kid Cudi, I mean, was not bad. Wasn't blown away by his performance. It was just there. But the story for werewolves and Nazis kind of feels like a Dog Soldiers kind of movie. Soldiers get held up in like a prison that has been overrun by the Nazis, and they find dead bodies and this girl in there and find out she's a werewolf. This particular segment was okay. I wasn't really fond of it. I appreciate that Rob actually wanted to try something a little bit more straight-laced, and I think he didn't do a horrible job by any means. It is gory, so I have to give it that, but I would have to say this particular segment for me was not my favorite. The werewolves were pretty cool. They had like 3 different forms. They didn't really show them transitioning, and that kind of makes sense. It's probably budgetary restraints. It's not like they could go all out and do freaking American Werewolf, and do it like that. Although I would have loved to see it, but they kind of, did the comic book thing and flipped through all the different pages of transformation, which was still cool. And it was a nice technique to kind of gloss over what they couldn't do or what they couldn't afford to achieve. I thought it was pretty cool. The way it wraps up is kind of predictable. It wasn't my favorite segment, to be honest. It just felt very familiar, but not terrible. There was another segment that was called The Finger, which I was actually a bigger fan of this particular segment. It's actually directed by Greg Nicotero himself, the special effects master. It's also written by David J. Shaw, who, if you're not familiar with him, he's the guy that helped do the screenplay for Critters 3 and 4, and he also did Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3 Leatherface. He's also working on a new anthology, which I'm super curious about, called Splatterpunk. I own the books. If anybody out there has those books that have all these like short stories from amazing authors in it that are gory as fuck, shout out in the comments below. But I'm super excited and interested about that. But something very interesting, and coincidences here on the show are a dime a dozen. And I've been finding out that this happens a lot since I've been doing the podcast. But David J. Shaw actually is the same guy who did the episode for Perversions of Science, The Exile, the one I was just talking about with Jeffrey Combs. Mind blown, guys. Like, what the fuck? How does that even happen? Randomly thought about that specific thing, and here it is in this episode. Okay, I'll stop jerking myself off. Anyway, DJ Qualls is playing this kind of fun, downtrodden guy who has picked up a hobby of picking up old thrown away items because he himself is a thrown away item by his family and everyone that he knows in a house that's going to basically be taken away from him. And he comes across this finger. It's not a human finger, or at least we don't know at first. I thought it might be like a witch's finger or something, but turns out it's not. Spills his Haro's beer, which seems to be a theme in the Creepshow series, by the way, from the first episode. But he spills his beer on it and puts it in the fridge overnight, and it turns into a hand with 2 fingers. The whole dialogue that DJ Qualls has with this whole story while he's doing this is pretty interesting. And if you guys don't know who he is, he's the guy that was in Road Trip, Dorky Kid. He was also in New Kid and quite a few other things. But anyway, I thought the like banter of him talking to the camera, I thought was really awesome. I really liked that kind of feel and vibe. It was fun. Him stumbling upon this finger that eventually grows into a creature that goes out and kills people that have wronged him in his life was pretty fun. Some of the CGI in that was a little, but I think it got the job done, to be honest. I still think it was fun to kind of watch him like endearing with this creature and them being friends and stuff because he had nobody. Of course, it all wraps up with him being locked away as a crazy person because he's saying Bob, his creature friend who goes out and kills for him, is the reason. And it kind of makes you question whether or not he just did it himself and made it up in his mind. But they also play that little thing up in the window. He's like, oh, he'll be back. Bob always comes back, and we know how he likes to get in. It was fun. Both of these segments were decent. If I had to give a score for this one, I'd probably say like a 7, maybe a 6 for this episode in particular. It isn't a bad way to spend 45 minutes, that's for sure. I would definitely watch the DJ Qualls one, The Finger, again, and I don't know if it's ever been used in anything else. There might have been an episode before that did something like that. The tone of The Finger, though, just kind of had this like sort of John dies at the end feel that Don Coscarelli directed, which I actually enjoyed. So it kind of has that fun, jovial thing. And the creature effects were pretty cool. They show it kicking and, you know, breathing and shit like that. So there was effort put into it, although the CGI felt like it was stuttery or something. These are supposed to be small little bites of horror, so I enjoyed it. What did you guys think? Did you enjoy it as much as I did? Did you think it was worse? I think there'll be other ones in the stories that we'll get that will kind of help. But for this episode, you know, it didn't hit all the spots that I wanted, but still enjoyable in the greater whole. But other than that, I got a new haul video up that showing all kinds of DVDs and Blu-rays that I did. It's the video before this. We got giveaways in there, so if you want to try to sign up for the VIP club, do it. I know I keep mentioning it. Thank you so much for coming by, and as always, long live the void.